He had inherited an economy that was on its way back after a very strong and painful impact from COVID. And it's kind of tragic that this is all being wrecked.
Hi there, it's WAMC News Director Ian Pickus, and on this episode of the WAMC News Podcast, we speak with New York Congressman Paul Tonko. Well, in recent weeks, Capital Region Congressman Paul Tonko, a Democrat from the 20th District, has been among the Democrats trying to fight against the Trump administration's policies. But Democrats are in the minority, and they have few cards to play in Washington. I talked about that and much more with Congressman Paul Tonko. Here's our conversation. So the last time we caught up with you on this show was February. A lot's been happening in the weeks since, obviously. I would venture to guess that it's unlike any time since you've been in Congress. Is that fair to say?
It is absolutely fair to say. In fact, I would take it back even to my days in the Assembly. This is like a really difficult situation where the Constitution doesn't seem to be regarded by the president. The assignment to work with Congress just doesn't happen, and the rule of law doesn't apply, and defiance of court decisions. So it's a whole series of dynamics here that really speak to a troublesome and awkward moment in our federal history.
Now, one thing that's happened recently was that the House narrowly approved its budget framework. You were a no vote on that. How come?
Well, I think that certainly what you have here is an effort that really impacts the great many of us with some of the largest cuts to Medicaid and food assistance and beyond in U.S. history. And, that is all being done just to give billionaires even more tax breaks. So we're aligning the pockets of the well-off and the well-heeled to provide that comes at the expense of the American people, the great many of us who require many of these programs or are strengthened by these programs, from healthcare to infrastructure to you name it. So I found that to be far removed from what the dynamics of the election were. The charge, I think, in the campaign to both the candidates was to lower costs and to strengthen the economy. And here we're raising costs with a lot of activity. We're cutting programs that are essential. And basically, there's a budget here that is moving forward with some very drastic, painful measures that I think are going to be difficult as we go forward. The fact that you would cut or ask us to cut $880 billion from Medicaid. Medicaid covers everything from newborns to our loved ones in nursing homes, and also making a very deep cut to food assistance programs by $230 billion. So there's a troublesome nature to this budget and to this spending bill, and we need to do better. And hopefully, as we go forward, there will be greater sensitivity shown towards working families and the general public.
Now, you're on the Budget Committee.
Right.
How will the bill take shape on that committee, and what do you plan to do and ask about from the position of the minority?
Well, as you indicated, I voted against it in the Budget Committee, and now these cuts, these draconian cuts, are assigned to the various committees. So they're on the table. I serve on Energy and Commerce along with the Budget Committee. And so now the hard work begins to respond to these deep cuts that, many in the Republican majority are requiring, demanding. And so, the work that will ensue now is making certain that the committees go through these assignments and we'll see what that debate looks like. But there's no way to cut $880 billion out of Medicaid and not have an impact on rural hospitals, not have an impact on access and affordability to care. And again, it ranges from the early life stages, the newborns, all the way to, the disabled community, the senior community, and certainly those living in nursing homes. So however you slice this, it's going to be a painful outcome, and we're going to I think we need to move forward with a push to make certain that this isn't all about just providing another tax giveaway to the billionaires.
Now, there is some difference of opinion between the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans, where John Thune is the majority leader, and there's a higher threshold to reach in the Senate. So is it your expectation that what the House has passed would be pared back in some form in the Senate?
Well, it depends. I mean, I think there were behind-the-scenes negotiations between the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans, and there are some very conservative members of the Republican majority that want additional cuts. And so how they're going to work that through. But, we're ready to make the fight to make certain that we have a budget that is much more compassionate. This president seems to direct everything toward them behind the scenes. There isn't this formal involvement, the dialogue, the discourse with the House of Representatives and Congress, for that matter, even the U.S. Senate. So, I'm hoping that through a series of hearings and the like, we'll be able to enlighten the public and move forward with a budget that doesn't inflict this kind of pain, and that really tears apart, I think, the efforts to go forward with an economy that was coming back. He had inherited an economy that was on its way back after a very strong and painful impact from COVID. And it's kind of tragic that this is all being wrecked between these spending bills, the budget to come, and the tariff activity that he's pursued.
Well, let me follow up and ask about the tariffs. There have obviously been a flurry of announcements and rollbacks and changes and so on. But what impacts are you seeing on industry within the 20th District so far?
Well, I think, this whole tariff war is causing chaos and real pain for Americans. And there's no denying that a tariff can be useful, but this carte blanche across the board tariff impact is not helpful, and it's really causing a lot of turmoil with the economy. Trump's helter-skelter approach to our economy is just that. There's not a strategy. There's not a plan. They'll suggest that it's going according to plan. There's no plan here. This was just done in a whimsical way, and because of that, consumer and business confidence has been taking a nosedive, and stocks are still down quite a bit from the beginning of the year. And the damage here has already been done. You've now created a lack of trust factor out there that I think will impact our American business community and our economy. And for the first few days of an announcement here, the drastic price hikes on imported goods really spoke to a 10% sales tax in a sense. While the president contends that this doesn't get paid for by the public, it most certainly does. And it's a 10% tax on things that we buy, from clothing and cars to fruits and vegetables. And it's this effort that he makes to address nation by nation a trade deficit, when in fact the way to deal with this should be looking at it in a global perspective, where automobiles, for instance, are that final product is a culmination of many investments from various nations. And I don't think that's recognized here. The strategy isn't in play. And so just pell-mell throwing a tariff that was global except for Russia and North Korea it was a way to really disrupt the global market. And obviously we saw that it went into free fall, putting millions of Americans' retirement savings at risk and making life harder for working men and women. So, a roller coaster ride for certain. And I don't think we're done with it, because while he said that when he came up with the 145% tariff on China, then he announced in the aftermath an exception. He exempted some of the products from China, but now over the weekend, his cabinet people have said, no, those are still on, but they're going to be done in a different way. So this whole effort without planning, and people within the administration alongside with the president have offered mixed messages to the American public and certainly to the global economy. So a lot of work to be done here, but some very impactful damage done to the economy and to the trust factor of the U.S. in that market situation.
Congressman Tonko, we were talking about the potential impacts on your district from some federal policies of late. You had a roundtable discussion the other day with the regional food bank. So what did you hear?
Well, a lot of concern. A lot of people have seen that, the impact of the budget on the hunger programs, the food assistance programs at $230 billion is difficult to absorb because food prices have gone up. The president guaranteed on day one those prices would come down. He hasn't focused on that effort. So you take that factor and then apply a tariff situation where we have a 10% tax on fruits and vegetables, and that really causes yet another painful pill to be swallowed here. And there are growing lines at food banks. He should have focused on cutting costs when, in fact, he is making it more painful with the spending bill that he directed through the House majority, the House of Representatives majority, the Republican majority, and that $230 billion is then followed quickly by a tariff war that really is causing a lot of chaos and pain for those who run our soup kitchens, our food banks, and our hunger and food assistance programs. So it's going to cause a lot of hardship, I think, for so many families and for seniors who need to maintain a sound nutritional quality in their efforts for wellness or healing from surgeries or whatever.
What have been the impacts of the DOGE cuts on your district so far? Well,
the DOGE cuts have been, foolish and dreadful. What you have here is a person not elected, not confirmed by the U.S. Senate, not background checked, and he's just causing chaos and disruption at every turn. And it's impacting our district for certain. But tens of thousands of hardworking, qualified, and dedicated public servants have been impacted. They've been fired. And the lack of human infrastructure in many of these agencies really does come down to a local area like the 20th Congressional District, where, you'll see those efforts through Social Security, where, you've fired people, where you've closed offices, where you've denied certain services to be done via phone, so that you have to come into the office, and where you've had these cuts makes it, closing offices. These are really basically nasty cuts that are absorbed by those who are Social Security eligible, and it's an earned income, I would point out, one that they've paid into. But we've also seen major layoffs at like Health and Human Services, and the research that they're doing there, where the experts have been canned. They've been working on Alzheimer's, cancer, and Parkinson's. There are many people in the district that supported our Parkinson's bill because they live with the neurologically impacting disease, and their hope is focused and centered in research, and so that's a direct impact on folks who are hoping that the HHS efforts and various agencies, DOD, the Department of Defense, and the National Institutes of Health, all doing significant research that has been impacted by these DOGE operations. And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, one that has provided for great opportunities. I think $21 billion is the number they had calculated in savings for consumers because of impacts of fraudulent behavior by some financial institutions. They're eviscerating the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, as they are with the Department of Education. That whole impact with the Department of Education is significant. It deals with Title I, which is a very welcomed bit of revenue response from the federal government for K through 12 education. And so, they do these cuts and they don't come up with the corresponding dynamics of how we're going to incorporate Title I. Where is that going to fall and what is it going to mean? And again, could they be cutting it totally as a funding opportunity? The Pell Grants are impacted by the closure of the Department of Education and so many other agencies that keep our nation and the 20th Congressional District safe, healthy, and supported. And so, the DOGE thing, and to inflict such harm and hurt, and to then signify your work and symbolize your work via the dynamics and the optics of a chainsaw is insulting.
That's Elon Musk who did that, right?
Yeah, and it's adding more pain to the situation. If you really wanted to do efficiency efforts, make efficiency efforts, and do the trimming that you claim is necessary, and all of us want to strive for efficiency, you do it with inspectors general. They know the culture of the institution. They know the mission statement. They have appeared before hearings in the House. They're nonpartisan. They will give you updates on how programs have been implemented. Are they meeting with the legislative intent? Are they failing? How are the budgets going? Are they over budget? Are they not investing the dollars that were requested and required by Congress? These are the folks that are in the know, and they were some of the first that they fired. And that institutional memory is significant in having an intelligent academic discussion on just how to trim a budget and go forward with efforts to achieve efficiency. This is not, if I would argue that they're causing more inefficiency than solving efficiency efforts out there.
How worried are you about the future of the CHIPS and Science Act, which has such an outsized impact on your district? I mean, they've made some noise about potentially cutting it and rolling it back. I know President Trump mentioned that in his address to a joint session of Congress earlier this year.
Yeah, he seems to be, he's so determined to wipe out things that have been done during the Biden years. And we have more business individuals, leaders in the business community, and consumers who have found employment with these efforts that were done in the earlier sessions of Congress in the last few years. They've been powerful, the whole assistance to the semiconductor industry to make us a world leader with the activities at Global Foundries, with the activities right here in the district, with those with the Nanotech campus in Albany, with the Micron campus in Syracuse. This is drawing people to upstate New York that have specific skills that are adding their talent to the equation. They're honing the skills of individuals within the district to grow work opportunities for them. This has been a major investment in the high-tech opportunities, the innovation economy, clean energy economy of this country, and tethered right here in the 20th Congressional District. The president mentions it over and over that, we have to undo the CHIPS and Science Act. I mean, he seems to get on a topic and a solution and a mantra, and he can't drop it. He keeps mentioning it over and over, and I don't think it's well thought out. I think it shows a cluelessness of how the economy has been growing because of the semiconductor industry, the microelectronics. These are are cutting-edge opportunities. Chips will be required more and more. They're in all things that we utilize, from our phones to our computers to our coffee makers to our automobiles. And as you introduce more and more energy-saving or environmentally friendly vehicles, more and more chips are incorporated into those designs. So it's a high order of again, being misinformed or uninformed about how this economy, the innovation economy, is working. And we had such great down payments with the CHIPS and Science Act. So all of these DOGE efforts, which are done, again, in a cavalier way that have caused chaos and disruption, are just not healthy for our economy. The tragedy here is that I believe we had and it's not my belief just necessarily, it's having heard from a number of the global economic experts, we had the strongest comeback of COVID as an economy here in the U.S. Had he let that run its course, we would be strengthening our employment stats and our work opportunities. But instead, he's taken this DOGE effort and this whole effort to carve deeply into government with his chainsaw and tariff applications that were without a plan and really put the economy at risk. And now many economists are saying there's a greater than 50-50 chance that we'll be in a recession.
So, Congressman Tonko, I was wondering, what did you think of Congresswoman Stefanik from the next door 21st District staying in Congress as opposed to going on to be UN ambassador?
Well, nothing surprises me with this session in Congress. And on again, off again seems to be a theme. On again, off again tariffs, on again, off again cuts, then restoring what the cuts were, rehiring people, can't find them, sold the place they were working in. So just a lot of uncertainty. And I think the same has been applied here with some of his nominations. And, the Congresswoman being victimized by that decision. So, I think that we need more steadiness here. We need more certainty and predictability in order to have a good transition into a new administration, and we haven't found it to be so.
It's our first time talking since the decision by your colleague from New York, Chuck Schumer, from the Senate, to go ahead and vote for a short-term funding bill to keep government open as opposed to shutting down. And a lot of Democrats thought that Schumer had maybe wasted some leverage with that decision. So there were some calls for him to maybe step aside from leadership after that. But I was wondering what your opinion was of his decision ultimately to go ahead and support the package that had been sent over from the House.
We disagreed on this one, and I thought that the House did the right thing. We were near unanimous. I think one member fell off the block of voting that we had, and I think it was the right vote. I think it certainly enabled us to make a statement and say this is an unacceptable budget. It is lining the pockets of billionaires at the expense of the great many of us via slashes to programs and not sharing equally in a tax cut. 83% of that 2016 tax cut they want to reauthorize went to the top 1%. And, that kind of outcome is unacceptable. And I think we needed to stand our ground, be forceful in the effort, and it would have left the president owning that budget, and I think it would have brought them back to the table. But it was an opportunity lost. I disagreed with the eventual outcome, but now we're on to a spending plan that was approved, and now the hard work begins on a budget that is has the potential of decimating Medicaid, which is really very much an access to health care for many, many Americans and affects the full spectrum of age groups out there, and slashing programs that address the education networks, the hunger assistance programs, a dreadful outcome. And we're going to be working with with every bit of energy and passion here to avoid to avoid the pain that's potentially going to inflict the American public.
So a related question, because I know we've covered some of your town halls in the Capital Region of late, and some of your constituents have been calling on you and other Democrats to do more at this moment in our history. So what do you say to that? I mean, from where I'm sitting, the Democrats don't have a lot of cards to play as far as I can tell. But what's your message to people who think that the party needs to refocus in some way?
Well, we're using every tool at our fingertips to fight back against what is this lawless agenda. That includes communications, and that includes our town halls and roundtables and the like, and doing programs with the media, such as this. It also includes legislation. We have advanced legislation that will try and stop his callous disregard for for Congress to work with us. The House has been assigned by the Constitution the powers of the purse, and then there's litigation, and we've waged many a case against the administration, and we're winning many. But it's just a waste of time, energy, and dollars here that is causing us to respond to chaos. It's time that he work with Congress, but we're going to continue to advance the messaging out there. I'm convinced that with time, the crowds are only growing, the volume is only getting louder, and the impact is getting more severe. And I think that we have a chance here to educate and organize the public about the devastating cuts to programs like Medicaid and SNAP that are included in the Republican rip-off budget plan. Sometimes it takes forever to get the message out there so that the knowledge is shared with the general public. But and the pain is starting to trickle into many of a concern out there. So I think what you have is a growing sentiment of making certain that people are made aware and they're responding in a very bold and deliberate way. And I'm seeing people at rallies that haven't really done this before. They've shared with me it's their first time, and it tells you how drastic this situation is. And again, on that litigation front, we're continuing to support an aggressive court strategy to stop executive overreach on items like the funding freeze, which we won in some cases, and the birthright citizenship executive order. He does these cavalier things that he's probably advised will not work, but he just does it for attention's sake, and then obviously in an earnest attempt to, undo these programs because of his dislike for the programs. But we're battling back and being very successful in some cases.
You have a bill that we've talked about in past shows aimed at the proliferation of sports gambling with the Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, the Safe Bet Act. Are you getting any traction on that bill in this Congress?
Well, we're getting some, but we have, reintroduced the bill with Senator Blumenthal. We have made some modifications that come from individuals who are concerned about the addiction factor here, the gambling addiction, and we're getting notice, a lot of notice out there. I believe this is something that impacts my colleagues regardless of level of government or regardless of party. But I think in Washington we have the sense that there will be strong partnership with this measure. The thing is, there's been distraction with the tariffs. There's been distraction with the spending plan. There's been distraction with the budget for next year. And as we get through that and conclude that business, concurrently, we're doing all of our efforts to reach out. We're moving forward. It's been, it will be assigned to the Energy and Commerce Committee, but it's a bill that we take very seriously because of the consequences that exist out there, and because we need to make certain that the public health aspects of mobile sports gambling are addressed. Our bill doesn't end sports gambling. What it does is take a known addictive product and makes that product safer. And Ian, I think that's the call to order here. I've had a connection made from the UK and some other European sources that entered into that mobile sports gambling before we did, and they have encouraged us to continue to fight because they have seen what the consequences are. They've had more run here. This is just based on a Supreme Court decision made in 2018 by the United States Supreme Court, and it gave the states the green light to gambling, for sports gambling, and many now have also taken up, the casino gambling, the blackjack activity, and all. So it's only going to grow. I think we need, from statistics that are being shown, from advancements to the outreach to the problem gambling hotline, and various statistics and data that are gathered. People are telling us there's a growing need to have this legislation advanced.
We're very grateful for your time, New York Congressman Paul Tonko. He's a Democrat from the 20th District, in office since 2009, and we can't wait until your next round through. Thank you so much for spending all this time with us.
Well, thank you, Ian. Always a great opportunity to connect with you and your listeners.
Okay, that does it for this episode of the WAMC News Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm Ian Peckus.